Hello everybody and welcome back to FeedbackLoop. I'm Joey.
And I'm Jeremy.
And this week we're listening to Drab Majesty. The album is called The Demonstration and I picked it.
Indeed. I feel like we need to straighten out what our intro, because we always say like, oh, we listened to, or we're listening to, but we already listened to. We're discussing it this week.
Yeah. Well, there we go. Okay.
I don't fucking know.
Take two! Boom!
Nah, we're going. I feel like we're so inconsistent with like what we do and what we say we do. Yeah. Not that it really matters and anybody gives a shit and anyone listens, but you know.
I mean, maybe I should say this, and we've been listening to this or something.
This week we listened to.
Yeah.
Maybe.
There we go.
I don't fucking know. Drab Majesty, The Demonstration. Why'd you pick this album, Joey?
You know, I just was feeling it, really. Like, that's just the honest reason. I was just really feeling it. I was,
It's a time for feels.
Yeah, like, it's, we'll get into why it was a time for feels. I mean, but something about induction, because that's the first track, I guess.
Track 1, Induction. We're killing it already.
Boom, 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 boom.
If we seem rusty, it's because we are recording this 2 days later than we usually do. Like, that makes a huge difference or anything.
It does for us.
It's a mental thing. We're not prepared.
It's totally a mental thing, and not just that I'm very unprofessional.
Well, I mean, we are. Induction is track number 1. It's a very, like, solemn intro track to the album. It's not super long. I don't have the track, the time's up, but
it's 59 seconds.
There you go. It's an introduction track. It's kind of mysterious. It's got a bit of this like 80s synth thing without a beat to it.
Yeah.
It builds and it kind of gets a little bit anxious, but then the guitar ? I'm assuming it's a guitar. The guitar sound comes in and it kind of takes it in a different direction with track number 2.
Yeah.
Dot in the Sky.
You know, we'll just go there. Dot in the Sky.
Just because it was an introduction.
Yeah.
It doesn't really give you a feel of what I thought of this album.
Okay, what did you think now?
So Dot in the Sky, it builds off of Induction, right? Induction being an intro track. It adds a beat and it gives it a more like typical song structure. And then the vocals come in and it's like this, like, I don't know, it's dark emo synth pop kind of thing. That like I don't know, it reminds me of a lot of like 80s British like synth stuff, like the Cure and David Bowie and stuff like that. And I know he's not British because I looked it up, but he sings like he almost has like a faux British accent.
Yeah,
with it, and it's very kind of like new wavy and 80s. And I don't hate it,
but you don't like it.
But I don't. It's not my thing. I don't really like this kind of music. Like I totally get it, and I know that you like this because we've talked about you liking like vaporwave and things like that, and we talked about Duran Duran recently, I think, maybe off the podcast, but like, I don't know, this kind of music doesn't really resonate with me. When I listen to it, I feel like I'm just stuck watching some dramatic, cheesy 80s detective movie, and I just can't stop watching it. Like, I'm just trapped there forever. The song has a nice build to it, which redeems it a little, but I don't know, this genre of music is not my genre of music.
I would get on you more about that, but up until recently, I was honestly in the same boat. Like,
interesting.
I mean,
so what changed it for you? Was it this album?
It wasn't necessarily this album. It was a lot of things over a long period of time. Like, that's
fair. That's how taste develops, I guess.
It was. I mean, if you want to go back far enough, it went into like me getting into more experimental electronic music,
sure,
which eventually led into me getting into kind of, I guess they call it plunderphonics, which led into vaporwave, which is like you use a bunch of sampling from other stuff. And
and we hit on, I think we talked a little bit about that on the One Tricks Point Never episode, and I was fine with Replica. I like Replica, but I don't know, this specific, like, I don't know what the genre is called. It's like emo 80s synth stuff.
Yeah,
is not like it's not for me.
Yeah, I'd call it new wave, but I know I'm gonna get yelled at for calling it that.
I also put new wave in my notes, but it was like I don't know what this is actually classified as. Maybe I should have done some research, but I didn't.
New wave is like New Order or something. Like they're like new wave, and I think it has more guitars, a little bit less synths, but I mean still synths. But that's kind of what I classify this as. Maybe just like a bit of a darker version of it.
Yeah, and it is dark for sure. Like even in lyrical content, it's kind of dark, but we'll get into that. I think musically, the only bearing I could set, the only thing that I could cling to as far as like relating it to something that I do enjoy is Churches, because they're very much like synth pop kind of stuff, but they're not nearly as dark, and they don't have the kind of the sad boy British vocals that I think that's a large part of what I don't like about this. That and it's very 80s, and I'm not huge into 80s music, but Churches is similar in a different way. It's more modern, it's more poppy, and I think I could get to enjoy this at some point, but I don't know, something about it just rubs me the wrong way right now.
Yeah, and I mean his voice, it's very over enunciated, very dramatic, very like
Yeah.
it does sound almost English. And the way they mixed it, his vocals are pretty hidden behind the music, I'd say. Like they're kind of washed out behind the music. And I mean, it's on purpose, but yeah.
I think that's what gave me the whole like 80s detective movie vibe thing, is because it sounds like music that would be playing in the background as something is being played out in front of me, kind of a thing.
Yeah. And as far as like I do like the very like it has, I guess, a full sound. It's very dark, very moody, but it doesn't really change too much. And that's a theme like on the album. It's, I mean, I guess maybe of just this type of music, but like the song, it hits with the guitar line. It's got the drum, which sounds like a drum machine to me, but this guy, so he goes by the name Deb Demure for, which is supposed to be like this androgynous alter ego, like genderless type of just a being for this project. His real name is Andrew Klinko, and he's a drummer for a band called Marriages. So I don't want to think that it's a drum machine, but it sounds like a drum machine. But since he's a drummer...
it's probably an electronic drum set, right?
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Because it has that very, like... I don't know why I always picture in my mind Patrick Star from SpongeBob doing the concert thing. It's very much that sound of
Hell
drum.
yeah. That's the greatest. We all need Patrick Star drumming with his fucking crazy skinny ass sunglasses that he's wearing, holding up his drumsticks,
and the black octagonal drum pad.
Hell yeah.
Very it's very much like drum machine E.
Yeah,
but I think it's being triggered by someone physically hitting a pad instead of programmed, I guess, is the distinction there.
Yeah, but the music doesn't change too much, so I guess lyrically you referenced the song being dark, and the song is darker than I thought it was about. So
yeah, this whole album, so I didn't pick up on the theme of the album until a few tracks in, or I guess it's the next track that I really picked up. And by picked up, I mean saw on Genius what it was about.
Yeah.
But yeah, for this one, I was just like, okay, it's kind of vague and ambiguous, which is kind of consistent throughout the album, I guess. But it's specifically referencing something, which again I'll talk about more in the next track, I guess. But I got from it that I was like, okay, it seems to be about someone dying. Maybe it's suicide and their kind of experience with the afterlife, perhaps. It didn't seem like they were so much as upset that they had died, more so they were just kind of like going with what they felt was the only option, which if you feel like suicide is the only option you have, don't fucking act on it. Get help, talk to somebody. I don't need to keep repeating that over and over again, but seriously, like I don't condone suicide in any fashion. Yeah. There's always another option, but it seemed like that was kind of the vibe that I was getting from it.
Yeah, and I was just going to give a quick disclaimer. There's going to be a lot of talk of suicide.
Yes, for sure. So if that's a trigger, I guess we probably should have said something sooner. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of talk of suicide.
Yeah, you can continue now.
And also in that vein, maybe spoilery, but I think it's a good disclaimer. There's also like a lot of cult talk. So if cults, I'm assuming cults may offend people that have been in cults and got out, or we have no experience being in cults, so I'm sure we're gonna handle it in a very non empathetic, sensitive way.
Except for the true cult, like because we listen to black metal.
Yeah, indeed. But yeah, so those out of the way, there were some notable lyrics. I actually like the lyrics in this track. I wrote down 3 different like sections of lyrics, and they're all back to back. that kind of go with what I had said. It says, you accepted the ride with the exception of life. You might find yourself in love with deception and lies. An unconventional mind was your ticket to die. You may have found your dot in the sky, which obviously the song is called Your Dot in the Sky. And then he says, they never heard from you, and it became a concern. You were gradually conditioned with nowhere to turn, which in hindsight, knowing what the album's about makes perfect sense. But I was kind of like, I really liked the setup of that, where it seemed like they were being pulled into something and just kind of going with it to find, you know, their dot in the sky. They were dying and becoming something bigger and better, is what it seemed in my mind. It's like they're becoming a light in the sky. They're ascending in some form.
Yeah, I won't give any spoilers on the exact situation that this album is in reference to just yet. But before I learned about it, which I figured it out through Genius as well. Like, or figuring it out. I didn't figure it out. I read. There was no figuring out. I thought this song was just generally about like religion and the thought that people cling to the thought of an afterlife and focus more on that, I guess, than in the world, or they get sucked into the thought of having an afterlife. But it was maybe not about religious people, but maybe about somebody who got too deep into religion and was more sucked into that aspect. Like maybe somebody who already had suicidal tendencies who was getting sucked in, like, which, I mean, doesn't work, because if you believe in that and then you commit suicide, you're immediately going to hell, judging by their belief. But in the context of this song, that's kind of where my mind went. Like somebody who was like, oh, it won't be so bad because there's an afterlife, and like looking for a way out, and they get sucked into that, and that's kind of what causes it.
Yeah, and they get sucked in, and because they're vulnerable, right? When you're vulnerable like that, and you're not thinking clearly, it's easy to get manipulated or misled and convinced that maybe killing yourself is the best option. And that's not the case. Again, just to restate that, don't fucking kill yourself, please.
Yeah,
you can send me a tweet us. Maybe don't tweet us. But send us a message. You know, I'm sure one of us will be willing to talk. One or both of us. You know,
at the same time. That won't get annoying. We'll just fucking
give us a group DM or something. We'll fucking figure it out.
Yeah.
I after that, I don't know how to segue into the next song. We're really painting ourselves into holes here. Like we're painting by numbers, but that still doesn't get me there. Track number 3 is 39 by Design.
There you go.
Which is a reference that I guess we'll talk about when we get to lyrics, or maybe we can
let's just go ahead and do it. Why not?
Sure. So this is where I found out that this song and this whole album is talking about Heaven's Gate, which is a cult. The song title 39 by Design is in reference to the fact that 39 members of this cult killed themselves in order to quote unquote graduate to the next level of not enlightenment.
Whenever the Halley Bop or Hale Bop, whatever the comet was, it was a big old deal back whenever it happened. They thought that like there was going to be like some sort of spaceship behind the comet that as it was passing, and if they like killed themselves at a specific time, they could like ascend to it and like get a better version of life, I guess.
Yeah. But so full disclosure, I love cult things. I think they're super fascinating and super interesting. And to find out that that's what this album was about redeemed it a bit in my mind, just like because it gave me an opportunity to learn about cults. I still haven't like dove into this specifically because I just haven't felt the need to. But I do think it's super fascinating. Also, that doubles as our Metalocalypse reference for the week because they have a Comet song, Death Clock Comet song. That whole episode has a cult where they drink purple Kool-Aid and get in some like giant stadium thing as a comet's supposed to pass, and they're supposed to all kill themselves or something. I don't know. Go watch Metalocalypse. It'll be funnier than what I'm describing.
It'll be funnier than the fucking cult where a bunch of people drink poison Kool-Aid.
But yeah, before I even like realized it was about Heaven's Gate, I had my own theory about it, and I was like, okay, maybe the song is about someone having some like emotional or mental disorder, maybe like borderline personality disorder, because he talks about leaving Earth and wanting to die, and I thought that was kind of like a dissociation thing and a depression thing, and then he says that it's a roll of the dice whether the truth or a lie would upset the person. So being like kind of emotionally unstable and never knowing like how to approach this person kind of made me think that it was more about like borderline personality disorder or something.
Yeah, this like lyrics wise, this kind of, before I knew that this was specifically about a cult and specifically about Heaven's Gate, I thought it was once again about this person kind of losing their touch with reality and falling into like some deep religion where it's I mean it just starts off with when you walked alone to leave your life at home, you really wanted to die, like you're escaping your actual life to go somewhere else because of, they paint it as you're leaving because you just hate your life where you're at. And then whenever the chorus hits in and it talks about kind of you want to get retribution, where the line is, if you could take a Polaroid of your life, would you cry? Would you make them stare into the whites of your eyes? Like where you want this person who has been pushed away from, or feels like they've been pushed away from their house and into the hands of this cult. They're wanting to show the people who, like their parents or the people they lived with, their loved ones, they want to show them like, this is what you did to me. And it's just like, whenever that line, it's just like really powerful because it just kind of hits where it's like, I don't know, just feeling like you don't belong in a certain place can lead to some really fucked up shit. And it really makes you take stock of how, I guess, you're treating people in your own life, or just like, I mean, we say message us and stuff where like it sounds like whatever, but I mean, I'm sure most people at some point in their life have had a breaking point where they're like, shit, I don't know if I can deal with what's here. And you've thought about leaving, you've thought about starting anew somewhere else, and getting like cults and stuff like that feeding on people in that exact moment. You always see stuff like, see people killing themselves to go live on a comet or something, and you're like, what, that's fucking crazy. Like
right. That's so ridiculous. Why I would never do that. But in reality, like, it just takes you to be vulnerable for a small amount of time and someone to kind of sink their hooks into you, and then you'll just go along with it without really like thinking about it.
You end up just one of those people, and you know, it's just nuts. Like that line always hits me where I'm just like, fuck. Like, man.
Pretty fucking heavy musically. This one's more of like the dark, gloomy 80s synthwave drums and synths and guitars and vocals and stuff. I had this other weird through line going, like, even after I found out that this was about Heaven's Gate cult, I kind of like had resigned myself to feeling like the music was that of an 80s detective movie. So through a lot of these songs, I'm kind of like shoehorning the music into that theory while the lyrics are talking about something completely different. So this could easily be the intro song to the movie I'm now stuck waiting forever in, and the song would be like some dramatic montage when things aren't really going the protagonist's way, but he meets someone that's about to change his life forever, which is kind of crazily coincidentally like also what the song's about, right? Because finding someone that's like, hey, come on, join this cult, like, come with me, it'll be okay, kind of a thing. But yeah, the music kind of gave me that vibe before I even read the lyrics. And then the song ends with some like TV static and some dialogue that's kind of drowned out. So I was thinking, okay, well, maybe the whole song was like a dream sequence, and at the end where you hear the TV static is the detective like waking up at his desk with the TV on. But then I think in the next song I contradict that and say, okay, well, maybe he was, maybe the TV static was to symbolize that he's falling asleep now with the TV on, and then the next track is kind of the dream part. So kind of ambiguous there, but definitely I can't shake the detective movie motif from my brain for this album.
I mean, it's very of the times. Like this album, whenever I first heard it, it was like this could have been made in the 80s and no one would have batted an eye, other than the fact that the events they're talking about hadn't happened yet.
Right. Yeah, which I mean, they wouldn't have thought anything of it. Like,
I guess
if they hadn't happened, it would have just been a fictional story.
Yeah.
But yeah, this album came out in 2017, which is kind of surprising to me.
Yeah, like I feel like that's another thing that I like about this album, and maybe that causes me to look at it in a different way, but I really like whenever somebody can capture another point in time really well. Like
going back to your nostalgia problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Nostalgia for a time that you didn't live through.
Yeah, I have no I didn't live through it. I have literally no connection to the 80s at all. Like
well,
the 80s,
you have a connection being your parents, right? But
my parents were born in the 60s. So
they lived through the 80s.
They did live through the 80s, I guess you're right. But you know, that's fine.
Track number 4, not just a name. We're doing horrible. We need to turn the ship around with our segues. We need to get back on it. But track number 4, the static fades out from the TV in the last one, while there's some like floaty angelic synths kind of come in and stick with it, and the lady finishes her monologue, and that's why I kind of thought that this one felt more like dreamlike. And when I noted, like, okay, well, maybe the last one was the montage that I thought it was, and the static at the end was him falling asleep instead of waking up, kind of a thing. I do like this track a lot more than the others on this album, I think. Maybe because it's not as, like, synth-driven. There's more of, like, a dynamic to it, I guess, than a lot of the other songs. And then it takes a pretty dramatic turn, like, 2/3 of the way through it, and it goes back to more of that kind of, like, synthy 80s drama stuff. But the setup for that was very enjoyable, so I didn't mind it as much.
Yeah, I like the music on this one. I like the melody. I like just this. I don't know if this is my favorite song on the track song on the album, because I do just, the music is so similar between tracks that I kind of just, this album just blends together for me. And whenever I listen to it, I listen to the whole thing, and it's kind of like one long track in a way. But this is one of my favorite parts of that big track.
Yeah, but it's a pretty banging song.
Yeah, and it's like, the thing is, whenever I was doing my notes, I didn't really know how to, I guess, break them up, because there's a lot of similarities between them all. But I mean, as far as the general type of music, this one, like, I think it starts off a little slower even, but I'd say like it's a little bit brighter. Like, it doesn't give off as much doom and gloom as kind of the previous two tracks, but it does. The song always sounds bitter to me, and I think it's because of the chorus. Maybe, like, it seems like the person who's singing this song is like slightly bitter about something. And it makes sense knowing the context, but before I knew the context, I kind of just never really, like, it just sounded different, I guess.
Yeah. It is a standout track, I think, and it definitely has a different feel to it. I didn't really get the bitterness of it, but yeah, I can kind of understand it, because it does start lighter, and I kind of know those like kind of angelic string kind of things at the beginning, and then it takes a darker turn, so it's kind of like finding that balance of the happy and the not happy, I guess, which could be perceived as bitter.
Well, it's definitely bitter, because, you know, lyrically, this song, I mean, so this song, I thought it was just about trying to find yourself or something, like other people not seeing you for who you are, and maybe like that was leading to the reason this person that I said got sucked into like a religion or something was leaving. But upon finding out the context of the album, it kind of sounds to me like they're in this cult, they've been kind of sucked in, and they're starting to doubt, or they're starting to not believe what, I guess, call into question some of the things that the cult leader is saying. And like, this is the point of kind of dehumanization, where like their personality is stripped from them in a way.
Yeah. And I mean, the core, it says you said we would be recycled, you said I would be recycled, and it just kind of like you said, it kind of gives a different perspective of someone that arrived to the cult expecting something and isn't getting those expectations met, and so they're kind of like questioning it in that way.
And I have a question for you, and I think I know the answer, but so on Discord. Is this why you changed your name on Discord?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought, and that's why I changed my name. Jeremy just came into fucking Discord one day and changed his name to ASDODY, which, to give context, the name of, like, the personal name of the people who joined Heaven's Gate, it was stripped from them, and they were given a new name that was 3 letters, and then it was 6 letters long, and it was 3 random letters, I guess, and then ODY, it ended in ODY.
Right.
And so Jeremy came in, and I was like, he's been listening to the album. And I know exactly where he's at because he changed his name.
And Joey then changed his to Melody, which is already an existing word, but whatever. He's so clever. He's so funny. But yeah, for context, I think the reason that they changed their name is because, like, the whole cult, like, what little I read about it, and I didn't go, again, too deep into it, but they believed that there was like some alien race that was coming to save them and to suck them up in their spaceship and fly them away to a better place, kind of a thing. So I'm assuming that the thought behind the name changing, obviously to dehumanize people, but also to, like, give them a more alien name, I suppose, because there aren't a lot of, at least, American English words that end in ODY with 3 random letters in front of them. So, and it kind of sounds cool, like just picking 3 random letters and putting ODY at the end. Like, mine was Asdody. I just literally the first 3 characters in the middle row on your keyboard is ASD. But yeah, it's I don't know. It kind of felt right to be like, they ingenious. The examples that were like MLLOD. It's like Melody and Sweody and Sorody and stuff like that. That's like, they aren't naturally pronounced that way, but like an alien could maybe pronounce those words properly and fine. Was where my mind was at for that.
Yeah, at this point in listening and writing my notes, I was definitely just like full on in the Heaven's Gate thing, where I was just like, this is it. This is right. I wasn't focusing on anything else.
I put in my notes, I care less about the music than about learning about the cult at this point. So yeah, I'm right there with you.
I definitely it's just, I don't know. It's like I guess the same reason people are fascinated with, like, serial killers and just, like, tragedies and shit. And it's just because it's like, I don't know, the same reason I took AP psychology twice in high school, because it's just interesting to learn about what can go wrong, worst case scenario in a person's mind, where you're
and
just
furthermore, like what could be lurking, like, in, like, typical neighborhoods, right? Like, there's always this thing with cults where they're like, I mean, the KKK, horrible example of a cult. Fuck that cult in general. I guess fuck all cults in general, but at least other ones are more redeeming than others. But, like, even with KKK, like, you don't really, there's that layer of mystery of not knowing if your neighbor is in a cult, kind of a thing, which is, it's interesting to me, at least, that, like, people maintain a presence, unless they're, I guess, living on, like, a compound or something, but like, they maintain a certain level of the status quo in their personal life, and then kind of go off at night and dance with burning crosses and whatever fucked up shit that they do.
Man, it is just absolutely insane.
It is, and it just hath no form.
Yep. That too.
Oh, track number 5, hath no form. Except the form is the track, and the track title is hath no form.
Yeah, I mean, it has a form, because I mean, it's music, so the form is music.
It's very, very interlude. I didn't have a lot of notes on this. I had 2 notes. The first, like, I guess it's not really 2 notes. They're 2 bullets on my thing, but the first one's a bit longer. So it's a very chill interlude track, and I like it. It's got some warp synths, and I feel like I'm watching, like, an old VHS tape, and the sound's just kind of like warping in and out with the old tape, and there's some sound effects and vocal samples every now and then. It's very thick. And then my second note is, I have ascended to the sky with the aliens.
See,
so, I'm about it.
So we kind of got the same thing, I think, from this, because this song is entirely instrumental. It's got very spacey synths, and it's like almost heavenly in a way, but it's broken up by like some static voices in the background. And there's parts where the music gets a little wonky and detuned and like glitchy almost. not like stuff super cutting out, but it's like there's cracks in it. And this song to me is like, I don't know, the realization, like these people are being promised this transcendence, and this is them kind of imagining that, or getting caught up in the whirlwind of like, oh, we're going to do this, and we're all a part of this, and we're part of this bigger thing, and we're going to be ascending.
Yeah,
and
this is the acceptance. If they were questioning it in the prior track, then this is really like, okay, I'm ready to give my life to this cult kind of thing.
Yeah, and the glitches are like moments, tiny moments of like reality seeping through, but the overall feel of it is like the acceptance with small moments of clarity that are quickly covered up and buffed over by the Heaven's Gate cult leader, Marshall Applewhite.
It's a good name.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably why you picked it.
Marshall Applewhite.
Like, I'm sure that's not his real name. But...
yeah, probably not. But it's a good name. It's a strong, charismatic white male leader name.
It's a name that I would pick if I wanted to fucking brainwash 40 people.
Well, I mean, maybe someday you'll get there. It's too soon to tell if you're gonna become a cult leader. But I'd maybe co-lead the cult with you.
Well, there you go. I mean, but you know what? You know what's not too soon to tell? Track number 6.
Too soon to tell?
Too soon to tell. God damn it.
So yeah, this one starts the second half of the album. It brings back the 80s synth drums, and it's back to what I noted as a pretty uninteresting sound to me, because it's just like, I don't know, it's not my thing. Again, it just kind of goes back to the sound of this album, which I think just makes me want to focus anywhere else but on the music. Again, I don't dislike it, but it's just, I don't know, it's just kind of there for me. It's in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, this song, I like every song on this album, but this one is not, I wouldn't call it a standout track for me. It is cool though that there's like a little synth solo going on in there at the end, and the one thing that stands out to me is the fact that there's like the opening drum machine pattern and sound makes me think of Mourn by like the album by Corbin. Like there's just part of it that I don't know if it's like if it's the sound of the drums, if it's the beat, but whatever it is,
I'll have to go back and listen to it with that lens.
It just like hits me that way. But the rest of the track is like, it's fine, but that part I'm just like, it always makes me think of Mourn, and then makes me have to go listen to Mourn.
Which is the superior album in my opinion.
In my opinion as well. I fucking love Mourn. But
yeah, that was a good recommendation back in the day. That was a strong one.
Well,
that's
thanks.
Almost a year ago. Maybe
that was a very. I think it was. I mean, that was
a year ago, maybe.
That was early teens, I think, in our episode list.
Yeah.
So
good shit. Go listen to that episode if you haven't listened to it, and also listen to that album because it's a good sad boy album.
Hell yeah, it is. Lyrically, this song, I don't know whose viewpoint this is supposed to be from. Honestly, even looking through the lens of the Heaven's Gate cult, like,
yeah.
I don't know if it's supposed to be from the cult leader looking to his disciples, I guess, or if it's supposed to be somebody who is on the outside world that maybe was a loved one of the people who is now a cult member, and they're looking at them. Or I don't know. It's just like, it starts off, I see your future now stretching through the years. Devotion is not a word I fear, which makes me think of the cult leader, but it's just like, there's just certain parts. Maybe.
So this was my take on it. I also struggled to kind of pin down the perspective on it, but I did finally come to a conclusion. I don't know if it's the correct one, but I took this perspective to be that of someone that is fully engaged in the cult, and they're trying to recruit somebody on the outside of the cult, because he's like telling them how awful his life was before he joined the cult, is the way I took it. Is like, man, like, I used to be in your shoes. I used to think that my life was awful and I had no direction, and it just kind of like, it seemed like he was kind of poking at the curiosity of the outsider and saying like, man, just like, imagine, like, I used to be like you, and then I found out about this, and there's so many possibilities within this cult. Like, just think of how much better your life could be if you were to like kind of hop in, is the way I took it.
I think that could be it. I mean, because I did like something about it sounded like there was an outside influence on this song lyrically, and that would make a lot of sense. So
that's what I took with it. I think I kind of ran with that a little bit. So I could be wrong, but I kind of ran with it for the next couple tracks. I think just kind of trying to form some like through line, storyline kind of thing with a character or characters. So kind of ran with it. We'll see if it pans out. It probably doesn't.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll just be a cold soul, I guess, if I'm wrong. But
yeah, I should have made a segue before that.
I don't know.
I thought about it. I was like, okay. I thought I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to do a segue here in my response, and then I just didn't. And then I was like, well, that kind of just fucks Joey over and fucks me over. Track number 7 is Cold Souls.
I was gonna make a Dark Souls reference of some sort, but then I couldn't figure out how to do it.
That new game today,
Elden Ring.
Yeah, today was Summer Games Fest or whatever, and there was an Elden Ring trailer that I have not seen because I've little interest in it, but.
Oh, come on, man. You don't like the Souls games?
Cold Souls, track number 7. This one, musically, it's pretty par for the course. It's got kind of a brighter, twangy-ish guitar kind of thing that sounded more notable over the synths and some more sad boy 80s vocals as it be. It's one of the longer tracks on the album, but I feel like it's too long. I feel like it just kind of like furthers that kind of stuck in the 80s movie mentality that I had.
Yeah, I mean, that is something. Most of these songs are pretty long. Like,
yeah,
I'd say an average of around 5 minutes a song. I mean, sure, there's some instrumentals that are shorter. The introduction is short, but the actual meat songs are usually about 5 to 6 minutes long.
Right.
Which
again, if done in a different way, I'm okay with it. But I think just because I was already having such a like bland reaction to this album, it just felt like it kind of dragged on too much.
Yeah, I can see that.
I mean, we've talked about songs that we wanted to be longer, so it's not that I'm like saying that 6 minutes is too long for a song. It's just 6 minutes of this sound is too long for the sound, in my opinion.
Don't you mean 45 minutes of this sound?
Well, yeah, but in specific regards to one song, yeah, 6 minutes.
This song specifically reminded me of The Cure, like,
yeah.
And I mean, there's just typically going to be a lot of that on this album, but this song specifically reminded me of The Cure, which I didn't really care too much for The Cure up until maybe about 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, so I've not really listened to a lot of their music, which is going to get a lot of people turning their nose up at me, I suppose, because The Cure's a pretty big, successful band.
They are. And they just had that song with Church.
Yeah, they did. Robert Smith has gotten around a lot recently. He had a song with the Gorillaz as well last year.
Yeah, he did.
So he's weaving his way into my music tastes, but I've not reached out for The Cure anywhere. So
he's gonna suck you into like a cult.
Yeah, exactly. A year from now, I'm gonna be in a cult called Heaven's Cure.
Yeah, there you go. That sounds like a real thing.
Yeah, it sounded like it was a segue for the next song, but it wasn't. Just to be clear.
Okay,
the next song is not.
This song too, though. Like whenever I was listening to it and finishing up my notes, because I usually do like a once over, twice over. Like as I'm writing, I usually like listen to it once, then listen to it and write some notes while I'm doing it. Listen to it. Every other time I listen to it. And the last time I was finishing up my notes, there was like a thunderstorm going on in the background as I was listening to this. It was just like, I guess, 3 or 4 days ago.
The weather's been great this week.
It has been.
I love it.
It's been real nice. It's just a bunch of rain.
Stormy. Yeah, I really enjoy it.
But it was a good vibe because I have a big window in my office that
I can tell you turned to look at it because your voice got further away from the microphone.
God fucking damn it. Well,
he's just staring listfully out his window as he talks.
There's just trees directly out my window too when it's like whenever it rains and lightning and
that's my biggest complaint. My office that I'm in most of the time has no windows. And so when it rains like this, I have to I literally get up from my desk when I hear it thunder, and I go and I stand in my kitchen and look outside for a few minutes and then come back in.
Just looking outside, holding a mug of some sort of liquid.
Yeah,
looking out,
some hot chocolate or something.
just like, oh
yeah, that's me. But yeah, lyrically, Cold Souls, I was kind of unsure of the full context of this one. It kind of seemed like maybe the protagonist of the album had fallen for somebody else, and I think that they had died, but I was unsure if it was like they were a willing sacrifice for the cult, and the protagonist, while sad, sees this as a blessing, or if they were not willing to die for the cult, and then like the cultists killed them because they weren't part of the cult or something, and then the protagonist is realizing that maybe things are better on the outside. So there was kind of a bit of confusion for me as to like what had happened, but it seemed like the main character's love had died, and whether or not that they were a part of the cult and they died for the cult or they got killed by the cult kind of thing. It's kind of confusing for me. Hopefully you got something better.
I mean, so I had 2 points of view for this one, and one of which requires a little bit of a time jump. But the first one, it was like, so maybe 2 people in the cult had kind of, like you said, fallen for each other or started caring about each other, maybe more than was allowed by the cult or something. Mm-hmm. And that caused one person to have a realization like, hey, we need to get out of this.
Right.
So they tried to leave, and that's why they had to be killed or something.
Yeah,
and
I like that.
That's kind of like this song is the person who's still in the cult, like, like,
what do I do?
Yeah, like, we had to kill you, but I did love you, but like something like that. Or the one that requires the time jump would be the cult leader looking at his dead subjects after they have killed themselves, and he's like seeing, I guess, their lives or the potential or whatever in them, but it like they're dead now. So he's like,
I like that just as a standalone concept. I don't think it fits as well in the album. Like you said, it kind of does require a time skip, but I like that as an idea or a concept a lot better. I mean, the song's called Cold Souls, implying that multiple people had died, and I don't know, just the villainous cult leader looking and be like, man, I should have kept them alive a bit longer. Could have gotten more out of it. Yeah. It's kind of a cool POV, if you will.
Yeah, because I that's the thing. Like, there's so many. Like, I don't know what's this dude fucking thinking. Like, what's his end game? And I mean, I guess I know what the end game. I'm sure he didn't go into this thinking, yeah, let's all kill ourselves. Like, he wanted to benefit out of this.
Yeah, he wanted power and control, presumably.
Yeah,
and maybe if it led to money, then great.
Like that fucking, who was the blind dude in Japan who started that giant cult that like they had like Apache helicopters and released all that nerve gas in the subway, but this dude was getting paid fucking millions of dollars and had like a military complex and shit.
That shit's insane. That's why like cults are so like, there's so many layers of cults and so many like different types and the variety of it, and just like it's fucking insane that there are people living on massive compounds where they just like, they're basically self-sufficient communities of people that just refuse to contact the outside world and follow a leader or group of leaders to like do whatever the fuck they say.
Well, and then one person is just that they're fucking God.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like that person is literally just like the ruler of those people. It's like having a free state just in the middle of somewhere where it's like, I rule here. I make the laws, whatever.
Yeah, and especially like once they get as powerful as like you were talking about, once they have enough military that like if anyone tries to forcibly take over the compound, like a government or something that technically owns the land or whatever, like they can defend themselves. So that shit's not going to happen. It's much easier to just let them kind of exist, which is fucking insane.
It really is, because then you get shit like Waco, where it's like just an actual standoff for several days, where it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, shit's fucking crazy. But in all of these compounds, right, they usually construct some sort of church or steeple or chapel, so that there's always, you know, some sort of spire pointing at the heavens.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just beautiful. Like track number 8, it's a spire points at the heavens. I even messed up the track name. I'm looking at the actual track name and I still messed it.
It's fine. Track number 8, spire points at the heavens. This one's another like instrumental thing. It's got some warped synths and like church bell samples kind of droning on, is what I took it as, with some like talking going on beneath it, and it sounds kind of like dying to me. Like it felt vaguely funereal. I suppose, where it just seems like there's some sort of mourning happening, perhaps.
I agree. I thought this was supposed to be like, it's weird because I heard it and I was like, this must be like right before the whole thing happens.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I went with. I don't know how well that fits into the timeline because there's still 3 more songs, but
yeah, in my timeline, in the last track, there was the love connection, and one of the lovers had died. So I was like, okay, well maybe this is just them. Like, this is the track of the survivor mourning the loss of the other one.
Yeah, that's probably it, because it does sound like a funeral, and it's like there's like eerie church bell type sounds, and there's just kind of distorted whispers in the background, and it's just kind of eerie, I guess.
Yeah, and if they get sucked up into a spaceship, I'm sure that they'll be wishing that they could kiss the ground.
Yeah, and then they'll be kissing the ground when they listen to track number 9, Kissing the Ground.
Hell yeah. Back on the Segway train. All aboard.
Yeah!
All aboard our Segway U.F.O. taking us to heaven.
All the way to that Hail Bop Comet.
Yes, indeed. Hail Bop. Bop, bop, dude. Yeah,
somebody's gonna get really upset about that.
Well, fuck them. Kissing the Ground. It's a very like upbeat song, unexpectedly. Like amidst, I guess, its location in the album and among all of the tracks in the album, it felt a bit more like energetic, and it kind of made me think that maybe this was like a single for the album. I don't know. I didn't look into it to see what the singles were for this album, but it kind of had that feeling for me. While it is upbeat, it kind of had like an intimidation feel to it, and I kind of had this imagery of like falling down into like some dark abysmal pit into like the depths of hell while the devil's like talking in your ear about all the bad things you're about to experience. And I don't really know where that fits into my detective movie, but maybe he got caught snooping. See, I'm back on the detective thing. You guys thought that I had forgotten about it. I hadn't. Maybe he got caught snooping around like the bad guy's lair, and he's now being dragged off while blindfolded to be tortured or some shit. It's kind of where my mind went.
You know, that'd be just dark enough for this album.
Yeah.
This, like, for me, it has like an intensity and energy, almost an anger to it, and that went hand in hand with kind of what I got out of the lyrics, where it made me kind of think that some people in the cult were beginning to, I guess, rebel.
Yeah.
Against, like, the whole song. It feels more rock oriented, like the guitar is more crunchy and more on the forefront, and it felt like a rebellion of the cult members lashing back at the cult leader, confronting him for some lies. Like, maybe a prediction was wrong, and they were like, hey, this didn't happen, where we, like, you told us that we would ascend or whatever, and we didn't, and you've taken our lives here. Like, we've devoted our lives to you, and you're lying to us. And like the second verse is, you told me I need to atone, coming from a broken home. You say I need to leave my love alone. It's like, you told me that I had to like do all these things. Like I left my home, I left the people I love, and now, I mean, the chorus ends, now I'll just be kissing the ground. I'd rather be kissing my life away, which to me seemed like kissing the ground was like, we were supposed to be leaving, but we're back now. We didn't leave, and I'd rather kill myself at this point. Like, because I'd rather, like, I've devoted everything I have. I would rather just be done with it, I guess.
Yeah, see, I took the kissing my life away thing to be about the lovers. So the protagonist's lover had died, and lyrically, that kind of got to the same point that you did, that it felt like there was some sort of vengeance going on, where the survivor was like pissed at the cult leader now, because he's like, he's had his time to mourn and think about it, and he's like, man, this is fucked up. I'm gonna go talk to the leader and make sure this shit doesn't happen again, because it's bullshit. Kind of a thing. So definitely had the intensity vibes from the lyrics as well, and I think we were on a very similar wavelength. I just kind of went with the storyline of having the lovers in the cult, and one of them died, and the other one got pissed about it and is now trying to shut down the cult or something.
I mean, and once he gets his vengeance, that cult leader is going to be wanting to forget tomorrow, that's for sure, because he's going to be fucking dead.
How can you forget tomorrow when it hasn't happened yet, though?
Well, you can start by listening to track number 10, Forget Tomorrow.
I'll have to do that. I'll be right back, guys.
Go listen right now. Everybody who stop listening and listen to Forget Tomorrow. I was just gonna leave it there.
Then come back. Yeah. Please come back.
Please come back.
We need it. I guess we don't need it, but we would like it.
We're just talking to nobody if you don't come back.
Which, I mean, we already pretty much are. Anyways, track number 10, Forget Tomorrow. This one definitely felt like it had some like final arc vibes. Like this was kind of coming up on the end of the movie. Like the protagonist is about to face the bad guy, which was kind of like led into by the prior track in my mind. So it felt like there was like some sneaking around or some espionage. Like he's about to like, I don't know, unmask the villain or face him for the last time. Musically, anyway, in my detective cop movie, but also in the cult.
Yeah, I mean, like musically, it all feels pretty similar. Like this one, it doesn't have a bridge really even, and it's kind of the same, but the music it does pick up, and it feels frantic to me. But I don't know if that's just because I'm seeping in meaning from the lyrics into the music again, because I tend to do that. But I don't know, this song, like lyrically, the opening verse is just, it's pretty much the point where like the suicide has become the solution for the cult, where it's like, right. It starts off, shoot it up, ready to take a pill, juice the cup, phenobarbital, loosen up, and drift away in the bottom bunk, which I like that line after having seen pictures of the aftermath of the Heaven's Gate like mass suicide. They are like, there's bunk beds and they're just laying in the same get up, covered up in, and it's just like hearing that first verse is super creepy. Yeah. Whenever like it's just like, well, this is the point where they're like, okay, this is like, I picture the cult leader coming up. It's like, okay, this is what's happened, and you've had all your concerns. You guys are pissed. Like this is the way we do it. And he's like riling all these people up, and he's like, this is when it happens right now. And then it's just like, it feels very frantic and in the moment. And I feel like that's probably how it went down. I don't know, but yeah, it's just once again, it's just insane that like that happened, I guess.
Yeah, I had a similar vibe. I kept running with my lover's story, but with a slightly a different like perspective change. So I think that the through line of the album at this point was like, okay, maybe the protagonist's lover, the protagonist of the album, was already in the cult at the beginning of the album, and the protagonist was recruited into the cult. Shortly thereafter, the lover killed themselves to ascend. Right, it was her time, his time. It was the B character's time to ascend, and that obviously made the already depressed or emotional protagonist that was being sucked into the cult more unhinged, which means easier to manipulate within the cult. And now the protagonist is trying to give their life up to the cult as a way to maybe catch up with their lover, saying, okay, well, she already killed herself, I'm going to kill myself now, just because that's A, the only option I have left, B, I'm already in this cult, and C, I think maybe if I'm not being lied to, if I just go along with this, then I'll ascend and be with her again, kind of a thing.
Ah, man. It's, I don't know, like hearing...
I think mainly what spurred that is one of the verses. He says, yes, this is what it seems. Isolate, eternal dream. Wish I could kiss your cheek and cover you in that purple sheet, kind of thing. But I guess if he was covering her in the purple sheet, then that would imply that she was dying and not him. So I don't know. It's all loosey-goosey for me right now.
Yeah, and it's really fucking just crazy, man. Like... thinking about, because I know that the thought process that you described, like where the person in love wanted to end their life to reconnect with someone, and it's like it's just a crazy, that thought is so out of my wheelhouse that I can't like.
And it fucking happens. Like it happens in real life. Well, not that cults aren't real, but like even in acceptable cults like religion. Right. A lot of times when there's an old couple and one of them dies, the other one literally is just like lived, 50, 60, 70 years with this other person and doesn't know how to cope. And I'm like, okay, well, he's in heaven. Like, I might as well just like lose the will to live kind of a thing, just
Yeah.
so that like I can be with him again kind of a thing, which is fucked up and crazy. But I mean, I guess if you're that old, you know.
And yeah, and that's also another thing. Like if you've lived your life, especially people who like you see all these couples now who are like 90 and it's like they
Yeah.
probably got married when they were like fucking 18 or something. So
Yeah.
they've been living together for 70 years and it's
Which
like
is
how
insane.
could you I couldn't imagine living with somebody every day, seeing somebody literally every day
Mm-hmm.
for 70 years and then they're just fucking gone. And it's
Right.
like, what is your thought process at that point? And like at
It's
whenever
gotta break you.
yeah, like I think about stuff like that. I mean, shit, even like if you were married for like 20 years, like that's like,
Yeah.
and just like any amount of time, if you think about 10 years is like 36,000 days or some shit.
Mm-hmm.
Or 3,600. My math is terrible.
That's fine.
But it's
3
like
million days.
yeah, 3 million days. That's a long. That's a lot of. That's a routine and
Yeah.
another person and somebody else there, and it's like if that just ends, then like what? Not even
Yeah.
ends in a like a divorce. If that ends like hard stop where you can't like with death, there's no coming back. There's no seeing
no
them again.
communication. It's all gone.
Man, like I can't put myself. I usually try to put myself in other people's shoes to be like, I can see where you're coming from. I can't do that in this situation, but I can understand the distress that could lead to that. But it's still just like
that's a pain that nobody can know until they're in that situation.
Yeah,
which is fucked up. But it's gonna happen.
It happens to everybody eventually.
Unless you're single forever, I guess. Which
well, I mean, then you still die. Like,
yeah, we're all just gonna die in some fucking cult locked up behind the wall somewhere.
The only solace we'll have is that somebody wrote a song about it and put it as track number 11 on this album.
Yeah, this one felt in tone musically as like an extension of track 10.
Yeah.
To me, it still kind of has this big finale moment feel to it. And then there's some optimism that kind of creeps in where like maybe the detective is fighting for his life to get out and he's breaking. Then there's some like dramatic suspense, and then the song just kind of like blurs into like space kind of a thing as the track ends, and it's just it's an interesting way to end the album.
Yeah, I feel like it ends it about as well as it really could, given the whole musical direction of this album. I mean, there's a synth kind of solo, I guess. It feels like the drums are a little bit more industrial. There's more actual distortion on the guitar, kind of to signify that things are like ramping up a little bit to the end. But then it kind of just rides out on like a little instrumental type deal for like maybe the last minute or so of the song.
Yeah,
where there's not really much going on. But
and the final line is "I'll see you in due time."
Yeah,
which is it's a good ending line. Especially for this album. Like, I don't know. At this point, I was like, okay, so in the prior track, I was thinking that the protagonist was going to kill himself for the cult to try and see his lover again, but that clearly didn't happen because it seems like the song's written from the perspective of someone that is visiting the grave or the tomb of another. Like, so I was saying, okay, well, maybe the protagonist is visiting the tomb of his lover who's behind this wall, kind of a thing, but he still like thinks of them often, so maybe he didn't buy into the cult and he's waiting for a natural death to see them again. But also the song lyrics kind of imply that there's some merit to the cult afterlife, so maybe he's just like accepting that it's not his time to die for the cult and he's just kind of waiting it out until he will. I don't really know where I was going with that.
See, I kind of got this. And I think this is me putting some of my own shit into this song.
Sure, I mean,
that
happens to everybody. That's how we interpret music, right? We associate with things we're familiar with.
It's like I kind of got this song as a perspective of somebody who was a loved one of somebody who got into the cult and had died or had killed themselves because of the cult, and then they're on the outside. And they're they're visiting their grave, or they're wishing that they could have known what thoughts were going through their head in the last moments, or wanting to know what happened, I guess. but there is the line that it's been a year today, but it's hard to say when I watched you pass.
Right.
Like, I don't know, that does imply that they were there at the time, but it's like, in my story, I guess, it was somebody who wasn't in the cult, knew somebody that was, and had feelings for them, or they were just a loved one in their life. And then the implied merit that you were talking about with the afterlife was like to be a through line. And this is going to be a big comparison because we're talking about a Heaven's Gate cult, but like the through line that like mainstream religion and cults are not, like, there's not too much of there's a blurred line between them, I guess. Definitely. And it was supposed to be like that comparison, which, I mean, yeah, sure, most people, I mean, but we've been talking about like the people that think of an afterlife and want their life to end so they can ascend to this afterlife. And it's like, it's not too far off. And I think that is the comparison that I got from that, where it's like, well, I mean, sure, you're on the outside and you didn't hold any merit to this cult, but you're in one. Like,
right.
And
you still believe that life gets better after you die, and you're still like kind of clinging to that as the guiding force for your life.
Yeah.
In some aspect, which, I mean, I don't think either of us are going to be upset by claiming that religion is basically just a cult. It's just a socially acceptable one.
Like, I don't see any argument that could convince me otherwise, honestly. Like,
yeah. I mean, especially because, like, how much time we got? Oh, we're over time, so I'm not gonna spend too much time on this. But like, from where we are, like, I mean, we're in the Midwest. We were raised religious, right? There's a lot of churches. There's churches fucking everywhere,
literally everywhere
around here. And like, being a kid around here means going to church. Like, it's just the way things are. You get raised in it, and it's very little about what you think and what you care. You're just brought up within a church believing that is the way the world works.
Yeah.
Which, you're just brainwashed. I mean, frankly, like,
I mean, yeah, because
there's fucked up.
It's not, here's all the information about stuff, make your own decision. It's
right.
This is it. This is like,
yeah.
And that's
it's fucked up. It's fucked up, like, even more so, I think, because kids are naturally curious.
Yeah.
Like, they want to know why things are the way they are. And I think that's why I got out of the church when I did. Which, I mean, granted, I was probably in middle school when I stopped attending church. Yeah, I had to have been. Maybe even late elementary school. I don't know. I was relatively young, and it was just like things weren't adding up. And I couldn't get clear answers. And maybe that's because the church leaders weren't charismatic enough to make lies to, like, keep me in or not. But, like, things weren't adding up for me as this, middle schooler, because, like, I wanted to know answers to things that they didn't have answers for. And they couldn't, like, they couldn't convince me.
Yeah.
That was the way to be. Which, I mean, it's fucked up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
To be clear, I'm not shitting on anybody who believes. Like, I'm all about believing in religion as long as you're not forced to do so. I guess.
Yeah, and as long
my distinction here.
And as long as you don't use it to be a fucking dick, like that's the part that gets me. And it's just like, however you need to compartmentalize life, fucking do it. Like, that's great.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially like. My father is religious, and I cannot slight him for that. Like, I love my dad. He's a fucking great dude, and it makes sense to me that the older you get, the more rational you will see religion, right? Yeah. Because you want there to be something more. You're coming towards the end of your, not that my dad's at the end of his life, but like it makes sense. You want there to be more. There's a human fear of death and unknowing. And religion has its place in kind of coping with those fears and giving you a reason to not be afraid to die. But I don't think I need that personally.
Yeah, I was actually having this... Man, you know what? No. Like, I'm not going to go on this whole fucking tangent about...
Is this a topic for another episode? Discussion for another episode?
Yeah.
Just vent about religion.
And about, yeah, just thoughts of death, but we're at an hour and 5 minutes, so
we're a little over. It's fine. Overall, I like the album and concept. I like the lyrics. I like cult themes and stuff, but the music again doesn't really do it for me. It makes sense as a Joey album, given that like you said, you've kind of been getting into this kind of style of music for a few years now, and I don't discredit you for enjoying it, but I don't think I'll ever listen to this album as a full album, at least.
Yeah, right. I'm gonna
not anytime soon.
Yeah, anytime soon. I'm putting this whole album on your fucking trip playlist.
That's all it is. Just this album over and over again.
And hella.
Yep, that'll be a hell of a good time.
What are we listening to next week? Speaking of a hell of a good time,
we're listening to a Latin artist, Puerto Rican artist, that goes by Calma Carmona. Her EP is MICRODOSIS, that came out this year. And I chose it because I've been vibing with it. I talked to Joey a few weeks back because we'll talk about it next week. But I've been listening to a little bit more like Latin music and stuff recently, and this was one that came up this week that I was just like, yeah, I'm really vibing with this. And my YouTube music recommendations have all been like a lot of like Latin R&B stuff now, so it's kind of fun. But yeah, so Calma Carmona, MICRODOSIS EP. It's 6 tracks, came out this year, so we'll be talking about that next week. We'll be listening to it this week. I encourage you guys to listen as well to it and discuss it with us next week in the comments and the tweeters and the internets and shit like that. Until then, stay in our feedback loop.
Bye.